And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.
And I'm Juan Gonzalez. Welcome to all of our listeners and viewers around the country and around the world. Iraqis are voicing outrage over the sentencing of the last of the U.S. Marines charged in the 2005 Haditha Massacre of 24 Iraqi civilians. On Tuesday, Staff Sergeant Frank Wuterich received no jail time. He pleaded guilty to dereliction of duty and avoiding charges of involuntary manslaughter. Under his sentencing, Wuterich now faces a maximum penalty of a demotion to the rank of private. The Haditha killings marked one of the most notorious massacres by U.S. forces during the Iraq War. The victims, including women and children, were killed when the Marines burst into their homes and shot them dead in their nightclothes. In Haditha, an Iraqi survivor of the attack condemned Wuterich's lenient sentencing.
I was expecting that the American courts would sentence this person to life in prison. He should appear and confess in front of the whole world that he committed this crime so that America could show itself as democratic and fair.
Wuterich allegedly led the Haditha massacre and was the last defendant to face charges. 6 other Marines have had their charges dropped or dismissed, while another soldier was acquitted.
It was November 19, 2005, when a military convoy of 4 vehicles was driving through Haditha. One of the vehicles was hit by a roadside bomb, killing 20-year-old Lance Corporal Miguel Terrazas from El Paso, Texas. The next night, Marines burst into several homes in the neighborhood, killing 24 Iraqis, including a 76-year-old man and children between the ages of 3 and 15. Time magazine obtained a videotape shot in Haditha by an Iraqi journalism student one day after the attack that shows many of the victims, especially the women and children, were still in their nightclothes when they died. The scenes from inside the houses show that the walls and ceilings are pockmarked with shrapnel, bullet holes, and blood. In an interview filmed exclusively for ITN News by Iraqi journalist Ali Hamdani, a 10-year-old girl named Iman Walid describes the massacre.
I heard explosions by the door. The Americans came into the room where my father was praying and shot him. They went to my grandmother and killed her too. I heard an explosion. They threw a grenade under my grandfather's bed.
10-year-old Iman Walid describing the Haditha massacre.
In 2007, CBS 60 Minutes' Scott Pelley spoke to Sergeant Frank Wuterich about Haditha. According to Wuterich, he only did what he was trained to do.
You hear noises behind a closed door?
Correct.
What happened then?
Kicked in the door, threw the grenade in, grenade goes off, the first man enters a room and engages the people in the room.
You didn't fire any rounds in the house?
No, I did not.
Frank, help me understand. You're in a residence. How do you crack a door open and roll a grenade into a room?
At that point, you can't hesitate to make a decision. Hesitation, equals being killed. Either yourself or your men.
But when you roll a grenade into a room through a crack in the door, that's not positive identification. That's taking a chance on anything that could be behind that door.
Well, that's what we do. That's how our training goes.
That was Sergeant Frank Wuterich in 2007 on CBS's 60 Minutes. It is the only interview he has ever given on Haditha.
Well, for more, we're joined by Tim McGirk in Berkeley, California. In 2006, he broke the story of the Haditha Massacre. He's Time magazine contributor, managing editor of the investigative reporting program at UC Berkeley. Tim McGirk, welcome to Democracy Now! Go back to 2005 and talk about also what happened this week, the final sentencing.
Right. Well, what happened is that after we at Time magazine presented our evidence to the military, we didn't publish anything right then, but the military then went on and launched a full and formal investigation into these charges. They They interviewed eyewitnesses. They interviewed people up and down the chain of command for the Marines. They sent NCIS team criminal investigators to Haditha. But the fact is that there were huge obstacles. I mean, the NCIS team didn't arrive in Haditha till months later. There wasn't much forensic evidence left. They were trying to reconstruct a crime scene in the middle of a war zone. And also, there was the understandable reluctance of the Iraqis to come and testify in person, or even to exhume the bodies and send them back to the States for autopsy. Those things just aren't done under Islamic traditions. So those are huge obstacles, really.
And Tim McGirk, talk about how you originally uncovered the story. At first, there weren't even reports up the chain of command that a major firing by the Marines had occurred at that site?
Right. But what happened, one, is that we were, at Time Magazine, we wanted to do a story about Iraqi civilian casualties. And I'd been dealing with some Iraqi human rights groups in the past, and they proved reliable. And they came to our office. They showed me and my colleagues a video of just carnage, of terrible scenes that that were described earlier. And on the basis of that, I checked up and I did a Google search, really. And I said, well, what have the Marines said about this incident? And the incident said, well, there was a roadside bomb. It killed Terrasas, wounded another Marine, and it also killed a good number of Iraqi civilians who were standing by. And I noticed from the video that most of these people were in their pajamas, in their nightclothes. And that seemed a bit strange to me. And then the shots also showed, as you described, you know, bullet pock marks on the inside of a room and bloody floors and things. And I wondered, well, how is it that if this supposedly happened out in the street, that there was so much carnage inside these houses? And then we found out that there was that young girl that came through on the interview. We brought her to Baghdad because at the time it wasn't deemed safe for us to travel to Haditha. It was in the middle of a war zone. We interviewed the girl, who was an actual survivor, only because her mother threw her body in front of the girl and her younger brother when, as Wuterich explained, a grenade was rolled into the room, and then there was shooting that happened in that room. So then we went back. We found out that the girl in the room, the survivor, that she'd actually been shot with an American shell. We had those sort of details from the American hospital, military hospital, that she was helicoptered to. So that's the sort of evidence that we presented to the military before we even started thinking about publishing.
Tim, what was your reaction to the verdict? And not just this verdict, but all of them. Who has been tried?
I mean, honestly, Amy, I was dismayed. I sort of thought, here is a case where there were 24 unarmed Iraqi civilians, most of them in their homes, and they were killed. The fact is that there was never established that there was any gunfire coming from these houses where these people were cowering in fear. And I think what I also take away from this is that in Iraq and in Afghanistan, I've been to reporting in both places, is that the military reacts very strongly and issues stiff sentences if there's examples of criminal behavior, murder and the like. But if it's a case of a combat situation, I think the military cuts the men a lot of slack and gives them the benefit of the doubt that these things happen in the chaos of the battlefield.
We're going to go to break, then come back to this discussion. We're speaking with Tim McGirk, Time Magazine contributor who broke the original story of the Haditha Massacre. This week, the last of the U.S. soldiers involved with that killing was sentenced. He got no jail time. This is Democracy Now! Back in a minute.